Okay, Duane, I would start by relating a conversation I had with one of the African Nufriends who is based in the Congo. And I think you can guess what we discussed about, which is only existential problems uh, and all that, existential personal problems. And it's uh, it's very telling of people living in this part of the world that uh, they expect the real guides to physically um, intervene in their lives or in the political affairs of a country to right things, to right wrongs, because new friends are living there. So, well, at my own level, I I told him that well, the real guides are not interested in the political and social issues of a country. They stay aloof, and they are only interested in the highest goal that one may have for oneself, which is to get out of this matrix and find the peace and comfort of the real universes. So it was some kind of I don't know whether because somebody of from a spiritual background, a kanka, this these titles you call new leaders and all the like, the sort of thing that would just have some magical power or something like that. Or they say you should tell the Numan to do this, to do that. This is how we are living. How can we continue to live like this? I say, look, uh, there is nothing that life can do for you. Life will only open doors that help you to open doors that you want to open, and nothing more. I don't know, Dwayne, whether my response was anything in line with what you would say to Dwayne.
Um, Again, I get it. And this is going to, you know, continually be the situation because people are living in the past. That's one way to look at it. They really are. They're looking at the so-called stories and magical formulas that they've been told and taught. And so when you might say when people get bored, well, because they don't have the real knowledge, they go into these other areas, just like in Africa. They've got the magic and the voodoo guys, and here we've got technology, which is black magic. It's all the same thing. It's just viewed differently. And so people look to that. You know, just like when you see people here walking down the street, everybody's got their cell phone looking at their cell phone. This is their little magic wand, is what it is. You know, 24/7, they got their cell phone, which is understandable because this is an information world and things are happening. But you know, the new presentation, and it takes a few minutes. This is a lifetime study. This isn't all of a sudden, oh, gee, I like what you're doing. I'm doing the new you, and okay, but nothing's happening. Well, yes, it is, but it's not in the same consideration that you've been brought up with, okay? It's not that at all. You have to learn to see it. In other words, not see so much what I'm presenting, what is being presented, and the knowledge and information, but what it is that the reality, this isness, that already is, and we'll say supports everything. We'll just use that idea, but it's really not so. Just like the air we breathe, it already is. And so now we're at that point where each individual, they must decide for themselves or stay with their old ideas and their personal self, just listen to their personal self and how they've been trained, how they've been brought up and into their routines. And usually, of course, we all have drama. You know, again, I have the personal self. I see how it is. It's a funny thing. And it's been created a particular way, and in the cells of the body, or whatever you want to call it, and with the other 4 bodies that we carry, you have all these impressions. And not only that, we're getting bombarded every day with impressions. All the black magic, everything is bombardment. Even from other planets, they have installations that are bombarding this planet with subliminals, and everything is a subliminal here. And so, yes, this is where it takes courage to figure out, and you have to be creative. This is what creation is about. It's not about just listening to somebody. It's not about listening to me or the old masters or the priests or whatever. It's not about listening to them. It's about figuring out what is real now. And so, yeah, this takes a particular view. And it takes time, and it's not in the same sense as you've known. This is where people come and go because they just don't get it. They just think that, oh, well, I read the books, I've been doing the new you, I have some experiences, but I'm still wondering about this and that. Well, guess what? As long as you have a personal self and these 5 bodies, you're always going to be wondering about something. That's the side of you. That personal self, that's how it's going to be. It's like raising a child. You'd like the child to do this or do that or whatever, but the thing is, the child's going to do what it's going to do. The personal self is going to do what it's going to do. So you have to decide with yourself how to recognize your real awareness aside from that. And also, it's not about that, you know, people are just because they believe or they like the guides or they have experiences that they're going to go to the 7th level and life's going to be great. No, these are the old stories. There's more to life than anything you can consider, but you have to discover how that is. So, yes, coming back to Earth here and all these things, you know, it's like Paul said, you know, you got one problem, you got another, you resolve it, then you got another. It's not about resolving these situations. It's learning to be creative and seeing what's going on. This world is like it is because we've all agreed to it to this point. We have agreed to this, each one of us. So the world is like it is. Now all of a sudden we complain. This is where people, you know, are... you know, petitioning the governments and whatever. It's like, hey, you know, we don't like the situation here. Well, duh, you've agreed to it up to this point. Now you don't like what you've agreed to, and you expect those people that control you to agree to your petitioning. Does that make sense? And so the guides step in, and so now you have the real knowledge and the real guidance. But it's not the same as it was in Paul's day. It's not the same as it was through all these years. It's not the same as it is in religions and spiritual paths and whatever. No, it is not the same because it is a recognition of your real awareness and seeing, but you have to learn to be very creative here. Okay? Otherwise, you just deal with it. You do something, okay, along those lines, and through that creativeness, you start to see more, okay? So there's no answer for these people, and they will struggle, and that'll be it. And so, yeah, because it's all available now. Like never before, it's all available, but you've got to recognize it. You see, Charles? It's a recognition now. It's not a literal thing with your mind, or where you stand in line and you get a loaf of bread and it's like, oh, gee, the guides gave me a loaf of bread. Well, maybe you can stand in line and get a loaf of bread. But I don't see it that way. In other words, you decided to stand in line, so you got a loaf of bread, but people will say, oh, well, God gave me this. So again, they're trying to use this whimsical ideas of magic to think that, oh, well, if I go stand over there, if I do this, God will do this for me too. See, it's always someone else instead of figuring it out. So we've all come here. We've had to figure out the situation. I had to figure out the new presentation. You know, I didn't do this overnight. I had over 30 years in the corporation with Paul and the Real Guides, and plus when I was younger, came in here to prepare to figure this out. And so people come in and they're getting the end result basically here with the references that I'm providing, and they think that they can figure it out in a couple of weeks. Here's the idea. Go be a doctor and go to all the schooling and the medical school and all this stuff. How long is that going to take you? 20 years? Now multiply that times 1,000. Okay, that's what you're up against and more. This is ongoing. This is the big deal. And the thing being is that this is why it's not the same. But our approach is with the all-natural environment. That's the isness life is, to be recognized. And once you start recognizing this, whoa, this is really cool. But there's no magical process to, manipulate the forces in creation. This is where you gain the awareness to become more aware so that you can recognize moment by moment what to do. And at the same time, you have to, walk through the minefield of what has been created here and deal with it. I do too. Yeah, so again, yes, these personal issues, it's a lifetime study. That's all there is to it. Just like we come through high school, first grade, second grade, whatever, high school into college. It's a lifetime study. This is bigger than any of the education that we've gone through. No comparison. And people expect that they're just going to pick it up right away. Yeah, so again, and the first part, which is really the toughie, actually the isness is easier and a lot more fun. But the toughie is getting through your personal self to in some way start to recognize your real awareness and the difference. That is the toughie, and that's what you're dealing with these people. They don't want to face their real side. They want to pretend that someone else will take care of them. It won't happen. It will never happen. So they'll keep coming back here, looking to the gods, looking to the authorities, etc., as long as they do. And yes, we use these facilities. We work the system. Yeah, that's of a particular. But that's not our being. You see, that's not the real you. It doesn't look to that. It utilizes the 5 bodies. That becomes the difference. So there's like 2 of you. And you decide how you're going to recognize this and take on the adventure and risk what you will to see this, because you got to be the risk taker to see it. Because if you're looking for things to be comfortable and compliant, you're not going to see it, because that's not life. Life is real survival. It's all about real survival and figuring it out. But once you start to see it, because it's a seeing and being, and then at the same time you got these 5 bodies, they have nothing to do with the whole of life. These are just situations that we have to deal with, that we learn from, to recognize and compare. That becomes the difference. See, they never told you that in Sunday school or your spiritual classes or whatever, or the education you got. No, they never told you that, how to figure this out. No, they kept you confused and distorted. So now most people are confused and distorted, and they think that confusion and distortion and figuring that out is the answer. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. You're not going to figure out what life is through distortion. So you have to learn to recognize what the distortion is. So if you're begging to the gods or the guides, that's distortion. It's not about that. So that's the short answer. Charles, go ahead.
Well, not so short, Duane.